We've been doing a series called New, and so far we've looked at a new heart, a new mind, a renewed prayer life. And I encourage you, if you missed Nigel's message last week, to go back to it. It was fantastic. And today we're going to be looking at friendship and fellowship. And I don't necessarily going to be talking about the fact that we need new friends, but what I want to say today is that we maybe need to do a friendship audit and look about how maybe there's some things that we need to change to make new in our friendship circles. And friendship is really important in society, isn't it? It's not something new. Over the years, culture has put a huge value on friendship. Society has picked up on our need for friendship, and we see that illustrated in many ways. I'm going to read a few lyrics from a theme tune to a famous show, and I'm wondering if you can tell me what it is. So here's the style of these lyrics. And it says, making your way in the world today takes everything you've got.
Cheers.
Taking a break from all your worries sure would help a lot. Wouldn't you like to get away? Sometimes you want to go where everybody knows your name and they're always glad you came. You want to be where you can see our troubles are all the same.
Cheers.
Cheers. Thank you very much. Yes, that theme tune. So we see there that they pick up on this need for friendship and fellowship. And then the other one, which I think somebody's already said. So no one told you life was going to be this way. Your job's a joke. You're broke. Your love life's DOA. It's like you're always stuck in second gear when it hasn't been your day, your week, your month, or even your year. What's that? Friends. That show continues forever, doesn't it? It's like 20 years old and it's still going strong. So TV shows have latched onto this key thing of friendship and fellowship. If we think about Cheers, I can't even think when Cheers started, probably 1980s or something like that, and it picked up on this need for friendship and fellowship. Social media has followed that, hasn't it? Kids, before the internet, or as the internet started, there was this site called Friends Reunited. And we were all keen to get on there and to search for our friends that we had lost touch with. And then came along Facebook. And it has many good things and many negative things. But it picked up this need for us to connect with people, to have friends. We get those friend requests, don't you? I mean, I've got 500 and something friends on Facebook. I don't know, quite a few. But I'm not bragging. I'm not bragging because I don't know half of them. So I'm not sure who they all are, but somehow we've been connected. So friendship is important to us, and fellowship comes out of friendship. Fellowship is spending time with people. And so it is so important. So it will come as no surprise that the Bible has something to say about friendship. And I picked out 4 things that I think a good friendship should have, or good friendship should be able to demonstrate. And we're going to look at those, and then we're going to spend a little bit of time looking at some things that maybe a friendship shouldn't have, and how we can apply that to our lives today. So the first thing I want to talk about in a good friendship is that a good friendship should be based on love. And when we talk about love and friendship, it is possible that we can get a little bit uncomfortable about that, can't we? You know, you don't want to, especially us blokes, you know, I love you, mate. You know, you can be a little bit uncomfortable, but that's because we have this picture of love in our mind that perhaps doesn't match up with what kind of love we're talking about. You may have heard me say before, if you've been in church before, when the Greeks translated, or when we translate the Greek for love into love in our Bible translations, we probably don't get the full essence of it because there are so many different meanings of love. But what the love I'm talking about is the love in friendship is called philia. It's spelled Philia. And this word alludes to loyalty and camaraderie in friendship. And that's the kind of love that we should see in a good friendship. In a good, we talk about, if you watch any of these programs, Navy SEALs or the SAS, they talk about a band of brothers. I remember I was watching a movie the other day, and it was about a true story from Afghanistan. It showed the training for the Navy SEALs, and they link arms, and they're in the sea, and they're a real band of brothers, a real camaraderie, a real love and concern for each other. And some of you may know the account of Jonathan and David in the Old Testament. Jonathan was the firstborn son of King Saul. Now, King Saul had a checkered history. His end of his reign was going downhill quickly. And Jonathan was his firstborn, so would be expecting to become the king when Saul passed away. He was effectively our Prince Charles. He was the next in line to rule the Israelites. And he struck up a friendship with David. And many of you will know some of the stories of David. David and Goliath. It was that David that he struck up a friendship with. A friendship born out of that filial love. And let's just read from 1 Samuel, verse 18, 1 to 4. It said, after David had finished talking with Saul, Jonathan became one in spirit with David, and he loved him as himself. From that day, Saul kept David with him and did not let him return home to his family. And Jonathan made a covenant with David because he loved him as himself. Jonathan took off the robe he was wearing and gave it to David, along with his tunic, and even his sword, his bow, and his belt. There's so much that we can pick out about that in there of a picture of friendship, but I want us to think about this love element of it. Friendship love is about loving someone as you love yourself. Think of the Great Commission. What does it say? It says, the Great Commandment, when we're told, when Jesus says, what is the greatest, he asks the question, what is the greatest commandment? He says, it's to love God with all your heart, mind, spirit, and soul. And the second is to love your neighbour as you love yourself. That's a bad paraphrase, but that's the gist of it. So the basis of a strong friendship is that you put others first, that you love them as you would want to be loved yourself. And we should see that in church life. And we've seen that demonstrated this week in the story in church life. People helping others, putting themselves out for other people has been happening. And so the very first thing we want to do when we come to thinking about our relationships, our friendships, is there love there? Is there that concern? Then the second thing I want us to think about that we should have in a good friendship, in a good relationship, perhaps it's one of the hardest things to do, it's that word forgiveness. A good friendship will require the friends to be forgiving of each other. Now we can extend that to marriage. Ruth has to forgive me a lot because I annoy her a lot, she says. But a good marriage is based on a good friendship, isn't it? You are friends before you are married. And so we need to be able to forgive each other. Colossians 3, verses 12 to 14 says the following. Therefore, as God's chosen people, holy and dearly loved, clothe yourself with compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience. Bear with each other and forgive one another if any of you has a grievance against someone. Forgive as the Lord forgave you. And over all these virtues put on love, which binds them all together in perfect unity. So we see here that we're to put love first, and then these other virtues come in. And forgiveness is one of them. And we have the best example of forgiveness, of sacrifice, which we're going to come on to in a moment. But of forgiveness is how God forgave us our sins and how he sent Jesus to die for us. And I think forgiveness is one of the things that holds so many of us back. That we feel slighted by somebody. Maybe they've not done something they said they were going to do. Maybe they've ignored us or they've not said something kind to us, or maybe they have been horrible to us. And yet we cannot forgive them, or we refuse to forgive them. And that isn't the example we have been set. We have no grounds to not forgive. Now, forgiving somebody doesn't mean it makes what they've done all right. Because I think that's where we struggle with forgiveness. That's because we think if we forgive somebody, we're saying it's okay that you've hurt me. We're not saying that at all. But forgiveness means that we let it go. We release ourselves from the bondage of unforgiveness. And I see it in church life so much that we refuse to forgive people. And what do? We're saying, well, we will take Jesus' and God's forgiveness for what we've done in our lives, but we are not prepared to forgive others who have hurt us. There can't be a friendship where there isn't forgiveness. And you can say to me, well, I've forgiven so many times. Well, Matthew 18, verse 21 to 22 says the following. Then Peter came to Jesus and asked, Lord, how many times shall I forgive my brother or sister who sins against me? Up to 7 times? Jesus answered, I tell you, not 7 times, but 77 times. We have to be able to forgive. I want to emphasize again, it doesn't make what that person has done or what has happened right. But we have to be able to let go. We have to not harbour unforgiveness because it eats away at our spiritual soul. Good friendship, good fellowship will have forgiveness in it. The third thing I want us to look at is sacrifice. A good friendship will be built on sacrifice. John 15, verse 12 to 13 says, my command is this, love each other as I have loved you. Greater love has no one than this, to lay one's life for one's friend. Lay down one's life for one's friends. Now, Jesus, that's a picture of the ultimate sacrifice, isn't it? That Jesus would lay his life down for each one of us to pay the price for our sins. And I'm not saying that we're going to be called to that level of sacrifice. But are we prepared to sacrifice for our friends? Are we prepared to go out of our way to put ourselves out to help a friend? We can think back to the story, the well-known story of the Good Samaritan in the Bible. He didn't know the person he found on the side of the road, beaten and dying. But he put himself out. He sacrificed. I'm walking off the screen, I can see Rob Graham, so I'm going back this way. Sacrifice is a key theme throughout the Bible. We are called to deny ourselves, to put others first. And if you're in a friendship where that doesn't happen, perhaps you need to audit that friendship. Perhaps you need to make a decision about that. We need to be able to put ourselves out. There are going to be times, there are times when your friend rings you up and you come and do it. You don't want to do it. You just want to sit in and watch the mighty Tottenham on the telly. And I tell you what, the youth life group did well last week because we lost, as I thought we would against Chelsea. But I was there. I was happy-ish. But there are going to be times when all you want to do is go out on your motorbike and the pastor rings you up and says, Nigel, you do this for me. There are going to be times when you could buy yourself something, but you know your brother or sister is in need and you're going to forsake that luxury to help them. Sacrifice needs to be present in our individual friendships, but also in our corporate life as a church. Then the fourth thing, and perhaps another hard thing to do in our friendship, is to have challenge. I've already alluded to the fact that a marriage is based on a strong friendship. Trust me, Ruth challenges me. In a good way. But a good friendship will have challenge in it. You don't need friends that just go, yeah, you're right to feel that way. And isn't that terrible? You don't want somebody that is going to not challenge you, not hold you to account. I'm going to read, I don't often use the Message paraphrase by the Message Bible, which is a paraphrase. It's not a word-for-word translation of the Bible, but this just helps to really solidify this thought. Luke 17, verse 3 to 4 says, "Be alert. If you see your friend going wrong, correct him. If he responds, forgive him, even if it's personal against you, and repeat it 7 times through the day. And 7 times he says, I am sorry, I won't do it again. Forgive him." You know, I lose track of how many times I say to Ruth, I won't do something again, and then probably half an hour later I'm going to do the same thing again. Or when I was growing up, how many times my mum and dad would catch me doing something wrong, and I'd say, I won't do it again, and then the next week I'd do it again. But we need people in our lives, we need friends in our lives who are going to challenge us, who are going to hold us to account. Especially in that area, of sin and things that we know that, if you know your friend is sin, you need to challenge them. Because that is love in action. Not challenging them is really bad. If I saw one of my kids, going to put a blindfold on and run across the road, I'm probably going to try and stop them and challenge them and say, that's not good. I'm trying to think that was a really bad example, but that was just off the head. I often say to the church, to you guys here, that if you see me going down the wrong road, you have to come and challenge me. If you don't believe that I'm doing something right, you've got to come and challenge me, because I want that. I want to know, I want correction if we are going wrong. So a good friendship will have an element of challenge in it. Now, you don't want a friend that just criticizes all the time. They're not a friend, they're a moaner. But you need people in your life that can challenge you out of love and concern, and that you won't get upset with when they do it. But you need challenge in your life. We've looked at some things there, the 4 things that I think will really help strengthen a relationship. I want to just touch on a couple of things that maybe have the opposite effect. Gossip. Proverbs 16, verse 28 says, "Troublemakers start fights. Gossips break up friendships." Oh, I think back to when I was at secondary school. I'm looking back some 25 years or something, probably longer than that, back to when I was at secondary school. I remember, you whisper about some of your mates behind their backs to say, you gossip about what they've been up to. And it would damage friendships. Do not have gossips in your friendship group. And if you are a gossip and you're in a friendship group, you better stop gossiping, because you're going to find yourself hopefully out of that friendship group. Because it is not good. Gossip breaks things up. Gossip breaks up churches. Gossip breaks up marriages. Gossip breaks up so many things. How do we know what gossip is? Well, if you wouldn't say it to somebody's face and wouldn't be proud of it, then it's probably gossip. And if you're not sure, don't say it. Gossip damages friendships. Proverbs 22, 24 to 25 says, Make no friendship with a man given to anger, nor go with a wrathful man, lest you learn his ways and entangle yourself in a snare. We need to watch. We've said this before. We need to watch who we hang around with. This is where the friendship audit comes in. I'm not saying ditch all your friends and, live a life of a hermit. But just be aware. Are your friends a good influence on you? Or do they lead you astray? There's been much frivolity in my house this week about me being barred from several pubs, as I mentioned it last week, I think, or the week before. But that behaviour in me, when I was growing up, not recently, obviously that'd be very bad, just in case my boss is watching. That was often just because I was being carried along by the group of friends I was in. I'm not blaming them, but I was just wrapped up in that atmosphere and that time. And it would lead to me often swearing very loudly and getting thrown out of pubs. Are your friends leading you astray? Are they encouraging you to do things you wouldn't want to do? Just be aware of it. Have a plan how to deal with it. That plan maybe you just need to challenge them and say, I'm not going to do that. And if that means we can't be friends, so be it. Or it may be that you have to walk away from that friendship because it's actually becoming toxic to you. So how do we apply all of this to our lives? We've touched on a little bit of it already. Well, we all need good friends. Isolation, not being part of something, is a big factor, is a big issue in society at the moment. Many people gravitate towards being part of a football team, or being invested in a group of friends in that. Some people do folk dancing, for example. Others, my dad belongs to several flying clubs, model plane flying clubs. But friendship, fellowship is vital to society. And that's what church is about, partly. Obviously, we're here to worship God and to hear his word. But we're also a family, and I know sometimes that's a scary word for people. But we're a group of friends, a family, we're a fellowship together. And so we need to embrace those things that foster strong friendship and strong fellowship as a church. We need to be a church that's full of love. 100%. The first thing we need to be is a loving, welcoming church. We've had some great feedback over the last few months about how welcoming the church has been, and long may that continue. I want anybody who walks through the front doors and into this church, into this meeting, to feel welcome and loved. Whoever they are, whatever they look like, whatever they smell like, I want them to be loved and welcomed. But I want to challenge, and I've been on about this for a few weeks, and if I offend you with this, well, hey ho, because this is a challenge. We need to not neglect meeting together. There is a trend in church that was coming before COVID that has been sped up, of people not coming to church, not gathering together. Now, I understand that there are people watching online and for medical reasons cannot be here for reasons like that. Then I understand that, and I'm not speaking to you in this challenge in that way. But there is a trend coming where people are coming less and less to church. Hebrews 10:24-25 says, and let us consider how we may spur one another on toward love and good deeds, not giving up meeting together, as some are in the habit of doing, but encouraging one another, and all the more as you see the day approaching. There is It's dangerous. Because where people used to come every week to church, now they maybe come every other week. And if we continue on that path of where we come less and less, maybe people will start to come once a month. And maybe then they'll just say eventually, well, we'll just catch up online. Now, I understand that there are reasons that, it's just some Sundays we can't be at church, something else has happened. But just check your hearts, check yourselves if this applies to you. I'm looking down because I don't want to look at anybody at this precise moment in time. We need to reprioritize, renew our commitment to being together as a church family. And that extends, maybe you work on a Sunday, and I get that. We need people to be working. We need doctors and nurses and policemen and fire brigade and all of those things that we need on a Sunday to be there. But then it extends to our life groups. Because in our life group, we can get even more close as a fellowship, where we can demonstrate love, where people can share their needs, can reach out to each other. That's what I want our life groups to be. I want them to be places where groups of 8 or 9 people gather weekly, be it online or be it in person, and do life together. Have fellowship, grow as friends. It doesn't mean that you're going to be best friends with everybody in that group. But you're going to be friends with everybody. You can care for each other and love each other and sacrifice for each other. But we have to, and this is not just for our church, but for the whole church, we have to reverse this tendency not to be at church, not to gather. It scares me in some respects. Years ago, unheard of, wouldn't it be? We'd be at church and then we'd get on with the rest of our day. Let's not neglect fellowship and friendship. Let's prioritize our life groups. Let's prioritize our gathering on a Sunday. Let's reverse that trend. Every church, without exclusion, is struggling with this at the moment. COVID has come in and accelerated something that was happening. And now we need to act. I remember one person in our old church would complain to me. Nobody cares for me. Nobody talks to me. Nobody comes and sees me. And they came to church once every 6 months. I wasn't sure they were still in the church. But they considered themselves an active attender of the church. I was like, well, here's the problem. Nobody's seen you. We need to reverse that. We need to guard ourselves against that. Life groups, can I encourage you? The danger of being a pastor, one of the dangers of being a pastor, is that you don't get to go to a life group because you're always busy, and actually the pastor going to a life group can often be a little bit off-putting for some people because they don't want to tell the pastor what they've been up to. But I've taken on leading a life group for a season, and I look forward to it. I mean, Pauline grills me. And Anne, I know you're watching, and you grill me. You say you've got a question, and it panics me. And I often go, Brian, that's one for you to answer. But I look forward. I know that life group have got my back. I know that if I ask them to pray for me or pray for something that's happening in our family, they'll be on it. I'm sure the rest of you would be as well. But that's an appropriate place to share it in that life group. And for that brief hour and a half, depending on how long Pauline talks for, I'm naughty, sorry, Pauline.
You're telling the truth.
I am telling the truth. Took a vow of silence. This was her New Year's out to me. I'm sorry, Pauline. She said the first night that we had back after Christmas. She didn't say anything. She got herself on mute. She said, no, I promised God that I'm going to listen more and talk less. We had to pray that she would talk some more because it was very quiet. It was unnerving. But for that hour, an hour and a half, I'll go back again, brother. It's not like I'm a pastor. I am obviously a pastor, but I'm with my friends as well. I'm having fellowship. And I haven't unnerved them by crying in front of them yet, but it's coming. It's coming. I trust them. I hope they trust me. Friendship and fellowship are vital. And in this season of new, we need to check and do an audit that we've got those things in our relationships. Let us pray. Lord, I thank you that your word teaches us so much about our lives, that every aspect of our lives is covered. And we've looked at this friendship and this fellowship. And Lord, I pray where we have got good friendships that we say thank you for that and we rejoice in that. And Lord, where we maybe just, as we've talked about this morning, maybe you're just getting a bit of a ping of this friendship might not be good for me, or I might need to examine this friendship. I pray give us the courage to do that. And Lord, let us embrace fellowship. Let us embrace gathering together. Let us be a church full of love. Let us be a body full of love and forgiveness and sacrifice and challenge. Let us be a model of what you would want us to be. In Jesus' name, amen.